Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Welcome to our today's session. It's great to have you with us
Yes.
today. I must introduce pleasure. So I must introduce that we've already worked with Attico Homes, and we find their practice and the ways of working very, I would say, professional. And I would let now Parnika kind of give a brief about their firm and how do they go about it. Although I have a brief from how your I would say firm is organized, but I would like you to kind of introduce yourself.
So, we're an architecture interior firm and we also handle turnkey projects. So, we start from the ground level and go up till interiors and finish with the handover and complete styling of the project. So, why we opted for this and why we ventured into architecture and wanted to do the whole thing was that right from the beginning, we know what we want to achieve till the end. And I've also noticed many a times when we're only doing interior projects, we notice that there's a lot of gap in between. To fill up that gap is when we decided to take up turnkey projects, and that lets us plan better for the client, keeping all the issues and problems as well as giving the design, um, the designer element that is required as well.
Okay, and anything about how, you as a team kind of work, as in you, Harshil, and I think probably your father is also involved. So
Yes.
how does the whole thing kind of, merges in well, and how does the sync happen?
So we have our teams very well defined. So I'm the principal designer. My brother Harshil manages the entire PMC site work management with the vendors. Getting things done is his job. So his is the hardest job to get
Correct.
it all together. And my
Correct.
dad, the big boss, who's managing it all for us, like who's the back end, like the backbone of the company. He also manages the entire functions, the functionality, the how the factory is working, how the finish needs to be achieved. So it's a collaborate effort of all three of us. And I would like to say that without one, the other wouldn't be possible. So it's a great team, and by God, we are blessed to have this team that's so passionately working towards delivering the best homes. And of course, ALCOI has done all my major projects, and I am so thankful to ALCOI to give me the best finishes, the services, everything. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear that the synergies that probably one has at home, you also have at your work, and probably there's no better blessing than that.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so let's move on to the session of our today. It is more to do with innovation for monsoon-resistant architecture and interior design.
Right.
So obviously, we're seeing how weather is kind of devastating the entire architecture around us,
Absolutely.
and in the north, we've kind of been flooded left, right, and center. 1 month back. So probably our session today is more or less to talk about not only I would kind of limit it to I would say residential houses, but little bit to do with urban development and design. I mean, we'll touch it on the surface, not getting into the details of it. So
Right.
any comments that you, before we start with the first question, any views that we have that why such things are happening and how architecture, a better architecture can play a role in kind of, avoiding these kind of flood situations. I mean, probably this is to do with urban development. Some thoughts that you would like to share.
Yes. So, of course, you're right. We need to be very mindful while planning the architecture, especially given today's scenario where a city like Delhi also faced major floods, like North Delhi was completely flooded, and it was, the whole Delhi was haphazard. So, we as architects today have to be very mindful of these kind of circumstances that are happening. We can blame it on global warming, blame it on the various issues that are happening in the world, but we have to make sure that whatever we are constructing and whatever we are designing, we keep all these factors in mind while proposing any design, because like that's the way forward today.
Correct. So, okay, well said. Let's move on to our first question. So why do you think that one should invest in monsoon-resistant architecture, and how do fenestration play a major role?
Like I just mentioned, how the heavy rainfalls have impacted our city and, in fact, entire India. So we have to be very mindful of how we are designing because of the heavy rain, the flooding issues that are happening. So while we are designing the entrances, the roads, we have to make sure that there are no flooding issues happening there. then at the same time, that will give us the freedom to, that will give us assurance of the longevity and the durability of the project. And one of the most important things that I would want to touch was also the problems that are the moisture related issues that happen in our houses or in the buildings. Say it's seepage, say it, the molds that are created on, that are formed on our bags, shoes, leather jackets, even furniture for that matter. So we have to be very mindful while picking up these the right solutions so that these kind of issues are not faced by the clients or the people who are in the building or the houses. And another point that we have always taken care of, and I think mostly everyone is taking care of today, is that we introduce rainwater harvesting into our plan.
Right.
So our entire design has to be integrated with that as well. And most of the projects that we all, actually all the projects that we are doing, it is sort of mandated to perform that today.
Okay, which takes care of the flood water, basically.
Which takes care of the flood water, which also rainwater harvesting gives us the freedom ki jitna bhi the water that is getting collected in the balcony, porches, it goes, there's a system that it goes back and that can be utilized by the house itself. So, you know, it's not really wasting water out. So that's a very important point, and we push our clients that please up rainwater harvesting karwaiye.
Correct. So that takes care of the flooding. So I'll kind of like to add in something to do with the fenestration. So 2-3 things that probably subscribers or people who are watching us need to take care of is that what happens during rains is obviously there is one aspect which is to do with the construction of the window. Now I'm keeping that aspect out. Why? Because that will depend upon from one vendor to the other. But yes, how they can seal their window is that most of the people know that the periphery of the frame with the side jambs is kind of sealed with silicone. But you know, there are some things more to it. So we can always have a double barrier water seepage protection by having a backer rod and then a silicone on the outside and then a backer rod and a silicone on the inside. Backer rod is nothing but basically a flexible tube, just like a thermocol, which basically fills in the space between the frame as well as the wall. And there is a third level of insulation which not only helps in water seepage but also helps in noise insulation, wherein what one can do is also use polyurethane on all 4 sides of the window. So wherever there are some special applications where I would say that the residence or a building is near a highway where or near to airports where people have apprehensions about noise insulation, that is where we do all the 3 things. Example, polyurethane will go in, which will expand between the cavity in the wall of the wall and the window. We do a backer rod and we also do a silicone. So that's one thing. If someone has come across huge problems of water coming in, not only through aluminum windows, but even wooden windows, they should look at using this kind of, you know, I would say arrangement or let's say solution on all around the windows. Second thing that many people are not aware of is that in rainy season, condensation tends to happen a lot in windows.
Yes,
Why?
yes.
Because take an example, you have an ambient temperature inside and suddenly it starts raining outside. Obviously, if it is a monolithic glass, the outer surface of the glass suddenly becomes cold. And because of the ambient temperature inside, you will see dewdrops on the glass pane on the inside. And vice versa, when you have, let's say, cold temperature inside, which is an aircon is going on, and there is heat outside. So when we wake up in the mornings, we often see condensation happening. Now, many people are not aware how to take care of it. Why? Because when they are buying windows, they need to be properly advised on the use of glass. Toughened and security glasses are monolithic glasses. A security glass probably has 2 glasses, but both the surfaces are sticking to a I would say PVB layer, which is polyvinyl butylene layer, but ultimately it forms one mass of glass. The only thing that helps to reduce condensation is use of a double glass. Why? Because in that case, the outer pane of the glass may be at a different temperature versus the inside pane of the glass. So it relatively, compared to the other alternatives that are available, it brings down the condensation to almost negligible levels. So these are the 2 things that people should kind of, take care in mind. Why? Because most of these things get missed out. Why? Because, people are just focusing on the fenestration, the material, the colors, etc. So I would recommend people that until and unless there are some very, very, I would say, serious security concerns, which is a more expensive glass as well, they should be looking at using double glass, which is more economical than a security glass, a better version of a toughened glass, and at the same time it tends to kind of secures you from condensation, because these days we have such large windows, and there are no grills, and that's the whole objective, to have the right view. No
Yes.
point waking up in the morning, drawing out your curtains, and all you see is water, or let's say condensation, dewdrops, and then you have to pick up. No one wants to pick up, I would say, a cloth to clean that in the morning. So a double glass helps you in that. So let's move on to our next question. As per you, we've talked about how to bring in water seepage. I mean, as in take care of water seepage. As per you, how can fenestration help in ventilation in houses? Why? Because that's another thing that I've come across, that in that kind of, when we do large farmhouses, the owners are so paranoid of having so many openings. Why? Because, there's a security hazard that's there in their mind. But if they do not have the right number of openings, the ventilation doesn't, and the space starts feeling very stuffy. I mean,
Absolutely.
during even construction, we can feel that if there is a lot of woodwork going on, we can feel the smell of the paint and other things going on. So, how do you think one should go about tackling this problem, that is ventilation, bringing in ventilation in the houses with the help of right fenestration?
So to bring in ventilation, see, ventilation is a very important point, like you noted, and especially farmhouses, I am facing this issue that people do not want too many openings. So in that case, we have certain solutions we've come out with, thanks to you also. So we can go for, see, lowered windows, and we can go for retractable ceilings, skylight, open to sky feature. We can also go for retractable jalis. I think retractable jalis have worked very well in all our projects also, where we have requested the window vendors, or you for that matter, to always give us retractable jali in every area, because that way at least they can enjoy the spans of the farmhouse, they can enjoy the green, and at the same time this also helps to avoid the mold formation, which is the biggest problem, the problems that occur because of moisture. That is also taken care of if we have effective ventilation into the area.
Okay, so I think you've answered what I probably wanted to add in. So we'll move on to the next question. So we've talked about water seepage. We've talked about, I would say, what was the last one? The
The
quality
yeah.
quality of air. Let's go on to the heat insulation. So how do you think people should look at windows from, I would say minimizing heat gain and maximizing light in the house, and probably energy efficiency. So what are your suggestions on that?
Okay. So to maximize light into the house, as an architect, we should take care that we should incorporate bigger windows into this space. And while doing the architecture, we need to keep proper shading techniques in mind, which means that we give enough shading to the areas wherever we have too much sunlight coming in. So we make sure that our balconies are protruded out that way. And as far as the glass is related, we can go for low E glass, and we can also go for the tinted coatings, or the resistance reflective coating onto the glass. I think that will solve our purpose.
Yes, so this is also fairly a new subject. Why? Because although these glasses exist, but mostly in residences, we've seen architects as well as customers are very hesitant to have any kind of tint on the glasses.
Yes.
Why? Because when we talk about low E glasses, they are nothing but they are coated with a.
I was just going to tell you to talk about low E glass.
Yeah. So low E glasses are nothing but basically the glasses are treated with a coating which is a low emissivity coating. Now, these coatings vary with respect to what kind of performance of the glass that you want. So in a layman's language, I'll explain it with examples. Let's say when we go to Gurgaon and we have very tall buildings, which are more commercial buildings, you will see that all the glasses have different tints, and they are very strong tints. Some glass would have a very strong silver tint, some would have a very strong blue tint, someone would have a very strong green tint. Now, what is the meaning behind it? So I'm not getting into the aesthetic aspect of it. Why? Because yes, tint is also used as an aesthetic medium to kind of give color to the facade, but that's not what we are concerned with. So what happens is there are two, three major things that you need to consider. Let's say in a winter climate, you wouldn't want the heat to not come in. But in a
Absolutely.
summer, you would want the light to come in, but not want the heat to come in. So these performance classes and these, I would say, coatings are designed to meet, let's say, X percentage of heat coming in and Y percentage of light coming in. So if I have to again say it in a very layman language, in case you want lesser heat inside,
Right.
and more light inside.
Yeah.
Then you will have to use a lesser tint coat. Why? Because higher the tint, it will reflect more light. Correct.
Right.
So when someone has to get into the use of low E glasses, the companies like Saint Gobain and Asahi provide a catalog which has the glass, which will give you its tint, but also its performance numbers. So, giving an example, when we go into residences, the best performing glass is Planetum glass from Saint Gobain. Why? Because it has the least tint.
Mm.
So, you may have a cladding, you may have a paint finish, but you just don't want suddenly a green tint comes out.
Right.
So, the platinum glass has the least tint. It's one of the most clear glasses available, yet low E. Then if you go into other ranges, you'll have a silvery tint in an ST167 of Saint Gobain. If you go into Asahi, and Asahi has an enhanced series in which we normally end up using a spring or an autumn glass. I mean, these are kind of names of their glasses.
Yeah.
Spring is a little like greenish, and autumn is a little bluish, but very light tints of bluish, and they are not those reflector, tints that we normally see in buildings. So these glasses help you to achieve the required need inside. So when we go to hills, we might be very happy to do with, frankly, a clear double glass. Why?
Right.
Because double glass would bring in the sun, but at the same time, not let the heat transfer. But when we come to areas which are more tropical from the point of view more sun, like probably a Delhi or here, we will have to slightly add the tint. Why? Because we don't want that heat to kind of come in. Why? Because then it affects the air conditioning.
Mm.
Now, another thing I've seen that whenever the designing happens from an architectural point of view, because in residences, people don't tend to hire HVAC consultants. They're dependent on the architect for everything for that matter. Although we are doing residences now wherein we have an HVAC consultant, which is a separate consultant. We have green building
Right.
consultants, which are separate consultant. So not many people realizes that when you want to calculate the actual return on investment, what you need to do is decide on the glass spec from on day one. Why? Because the glass spec on day one will help you to reduce the tonnage of the air conditioner.
Mm.
That you have to save rather than only looking at the running cost.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. We have to explain that.
Exactly. If the glass is decided and the customer has gone through it,
Yeah.
then in that case, probably I've seen, big farmhouses wherein the tonnage has come down from 50 to 40 tons, and 10 tons is like, I would not, kind of look at it in value, but it's a 20% reduction, which is not a bad reduction, which means that your return on investment, or let's say your break even, is going to be faster when you start actually using the product. So
Right.
this is important. So when information, or let's say market knowledge, comes as a tail and not as the head, you only end up taking care of it when the stage is, there to buy the window. So this needs to be done beforehand. This will help. Alternatively, yes, sometimes when architects are not happy in using low E glasses, why? Because they simply don't want any tint. And I have come across many, I would say, architects. I would not name one who was very particular that even when you end up doing photography of the houses, the reflective glasses don't end up kind of capturing the right, I would say the scene. Why? Because the camera would just get fed in by the reflectance quotient of the glass that we are using. So then they end up using hajas, they end up using louvers, etc. Because at the end of the day, low E glass is, at the end of the day, what it is doing is basically shading your window. So as
Mm-hmm.
we should have chaddas and louvers which maintain the transparency of the glass, and at the same time it shade when you need it. I mean, you can have pivoted louver shutters which can be open for a better view but closed for shading purposes. So
Yes.
all those, I think, solutions are there. So anything more that probably on the low E glass you would like to know?
That's it. But yeah, I like but I still want to know one thing, that if like you said, a lot of architects might not be happy using it because it's got a slight, but the one that you mentioned, which has the most minimum tint, that would
Right.
do a that would be sufficient, wouldn't it?
So the names that I told you, Planetherm, ST167, Asahi Enhanced, Eco Series, Autumn, and Spring, these are the four glasses we have been using frequently in residences. Because
Right.
in both the companies, these are the glasses with the minimum tint. So probably if you want to have a look, we'll send across someone with those samples for you to have a look. And sometimes when we are using green or blue tint, which is in Asahi, then sometimes it kind of gets along with the paint or the stone that the architect is using. So as
That's
I said, yeah, I
that's a
agree.
tip.
I agree. That's why I said that you need to see them for yourself against light, and then probably you can take a better call on that. And the values would tell you what kind of I would say, the performance that you can get in the house. But yes,
Done.
the
And
calculation.
we can have a look at it once. You can send it across, and I'll have a look at it for sure.
Yeah. But yes, we will have to include an HVAC consultant to kind of calculate the area of the glass versus the volume of the room, and what kind of reductions that he can give us in terms of, I would say, AC loads, frankly. So that calculation they have to do. With the data coming from vendors, they have to kind of compile the whole information to kind of get to know what kind of tonnage reduction they can get. So
Got it.
we have to include that. So okay, let's move on to the next question, which is more to do with materials and technologies of fenestration systems. And yes, again, we are going back to heavy rains and strong winds. So what are your comments on it?
So, in terms of materials and innovations, I think we can go for impact resistant glass. We can go for the aluminium frames with the waterproof seal, is what we are using in most. I think I'm using that in all our products, right?
Hmm.
So, we are doing that. So, aluminium
That's
frames,
basically a weatherproof seal.
yes, that weatherproof. So aluminium frames with weatherproof seal is the best solution as per me. Then areas which are more hurricane, prone, there you can use the hurricane resistant shutters, and those which are closer to the sea, which have more impact. The coastal region, for example, like Bombay here and there. Maybe there you can go for the impact resistant glass also. But as for Delhi is concerned, I think aluminium frames with the waterproof seal is a good option. And I've been pushing to all my clients, like, people have been debating on this and saying aluminium frame lagaye, na lagaye. But with my experience and with the number of houses that we have done, I think it's a complete, it's quite a successful solution. And I also felt, I don't know, to correct me if I'm wrong, that somewhere it was taking care of the heat inside the house also. Like, with the aluminium frame and the waterproof seal, I did not feel that our apartment or our building or our floor, anything was zada garam. Because
Right?
during summers in June, May, June, when I was visiting the sites, I didn't feel that, okay, I felt that, okay, I think this is also working well in terms of maintaining the temperature of the building.
Yeah, so I'll kind of add on to that. Now, whenever you must have felt or experienced that, probably I'm assuming there has to be a double glass taking care of that.
Hmm.
So there is something called as air permeability.
Hmm.
Now, what the frame just takes care of the air permeability. Why? Because the air permeability decides whether the heat is coming in or going out, depending upon what's the weather inside or outside. But the main function is actually the glass that's installed in the frame. So if I'm taking care of the weather, I mean, by using the weatherproof seals and the EPDM gaskets that we use, if we are taking care of sealing the frame, what's more important again is the glass. Why? Because only if you're using a double glass is when probably you will get the comfort of, I would say, energy efficiency inside the house.
Right.
That's one. Now, what happens is when you're using special glasses like double glass or for that matter a heavier glass,
Hmm.
that is where most of the companies tend to cut corners. Why? Because when the glass is heavy, you need to make the mullions which are holding the glass also strong. Why? Because glass is very nature, it's not a, I mean, even if a standing glass, you use a plumb from top to bottom, the glass would be warping. The
Yeah.
idea of the aluminum is to basically, in strong winds, when the wind is perpendicular to the plane of the glass, not let the glass bend beyond its deflection point. Because if strong winds constantly keep on hitting the pane, and the pane does not have, the pane means the glass pane, and the pane does not have aluminum members which are strong enough, or for that matter, with a reinforcement, the glass will deflect beyond its deflection point or required deflection point. It may tend to break. Now, how do we take care of that? Number one, whenever you kind of go in for windows with any vendor, you should seek a structural calculation for each and every window that you are asking to get installed in the house. So probably what we do in that case is we pick up the largest size of the window and we do a structural calculation for it. Because if the larger size is taking care of the wind loads of the area, the smaller windows will automatically do it. That's
Right.
one. Second thing is this, that we also take a guarantee that any breakage of glass in the 1 year of our installations, although no glass company gives a warranty, we end up taking that warranty upon us. Why? Because the glass breakage is also directly dependent upon how you've installed the glass. So we take a warranty that even if it breaks any time the first 1 year, we will replace it free of cost. Now that confidence does not come from that we are buying a better glass, but the confidence that if the glass is broken, other than the 1 or let's say 5% chance that it may break by itself, 95% probably it happens due to improper, I would say, expansion spaces having been given between the frame and the glass, and improper reinforcements having been used. So consider strong winds, water seepages. So, one thing adds on to the other. If
Right.
rains are, I may think, okay, I only need to protect the window from water seepage. But if heavy winds are happening, then I also need to take care of two more things. Number one, air permeability. Why? Because when strong winds are happening, air tends to probably would enter in. Second
Yes.
thing is, if strong winds are happening and rain is happening, and God forbids it is happening in the direction of the window, that means window is also facing a lot of wind pressure. So in that
Right.
case, what you do is give the right reinforcement. So one thing leads to the other. So the best part about nature is that it does not act exclusively; it acts all together. So
Yes.
if rains will come, everything will come. So we need to take care. So although how simple a subject it may seem, but at the end of the day, when we get into kind of designing the windows, that's where we need to kind of bring all the natural forces together to see that the window will sustain all these things by the end of the day. So
Especially the was facing last month. It was so difficult. It was non-stop raining. It was windy. It was so not June,
correct.
July. So not June, July. It was so different. So, if you're using the right windows and you have the good guys who know their work, who know their technicals, that's exactly how you'll hand over a successful project. Because handing over a project and making the client happy is a different ball game altogether. That only comes with the right people on board for the project. That's what I feel.
Definitely, yes. And I think it's more of a collective effort now that, with more and more, it's very simple. More and more advanced things would come in, more technical things would come in. Obviously, it will more and more, the world will move towards more collaborative architecture at
Absolutely.
the end of the day. And that's what probably we are facing sometimes. If we do not get the support of an architect in a project, we know that we're going to end up doing a mess up job there. But if the support
Absolutely.
is there, the job becomes definitely easier to execute and also better for that matter. So, okay, I think I've spoken a bit too much on that question. So I'll go to the last question of the day. So we've talked about most of the natural forces. So what do you kind of want to comment on bringing in the natural light in the house? So here my question is more to do with, I would say the natural light. Why? Because example, commercially I can connect it that when we get, sheds constructed for our factories, so there is something called as a light shed, wherein, the north side is open to glass and, you don't need light inside till the time it's dark. So
Yeah.
what kind of orientation of the windows, which directions, etc., you would recommend for our subscribers to kind of be informed of when it comes to the natural light, bringing in natural light in the house?
See, bringing in natural light, definitely use larger windows. And for the glass, use rainproof, like what we spoke about it. Use rainproof glass, use weatherproof glass. Whether that can withstand the rain, withstand the various temperature changes in this in the city in India. And light diffusing glazing options is also a great idea. And as far as placing the window is concerned, I think you should be very mindful of where the sun is rising and where the sun is setting while placing your windows. Even while, when we are doing the architecture and we are taking out balconies, putting the pool, doing all these, the first thing we keep in mind is where the sun rising and where it's setting, because that gives us a great idea of शाम को कितने बजे तक हम विंडो खोल के रख सकते हैं, which is when you're designing a house, I think the most important thing to live that moment, and you live in that house, and you decide, okay, this is what I want to do. I want the sunlight to be coming into the building. I don't want to switch on the light. So you have to be very mindful of these basics and start living in that house before you actually start to put it on paper. Like, that's a practice that we all have followed in our organization, which is the principle of how we are making houses today.
That's great to hear that. I mean, we normally don't come across many architects who's probably doing it a very thorough job. So I think we've come to the end of the session, and it was a pleasure to have you with us today.
And let
Any
me
last?
this that I am very thankful to you, to ALCOI, to give me the finishes that are required, but also adds to the beauty of the house. Like, of late, I know I've just came across, I think I met someone from your team last week, and they showed me some new coatings and finishes of the frames that you have come up with, which has beautifully added to my project, and it has given me so much kind of finishes that, for me as an architect, it's very important that, okay, along with the functionality, it should also be a very beautiful project, and that
I'll be very.
come thanks to people like you who are bringing in such beautiful finishes and helping us that.
I'll be very frank, it's always form versus function. We feel it's the architect's job to kind of, look at the form and the color aspect of it. Being engineers, normally we don't tend to kind of, overstep our brief in terms of getting into the aesthetics of it. So probably what you got from us was more to do with what probably you wanted, and we kind of brought in for you. But yes, one thing that we probably, I would say, work on more is the functionality of the product. Why? Because that's where, at the end of the day, the customer is going to feel the difference.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
aesthetics, I definitely agree, and then we leave it to the architect, and we fulfill their need by servicing what they want. But yes, for us, I would love, in case in future you have any suggestion in terms of technical improvements, mainly service improvements. Why? Because we are living in the times when fenestration as a product or as an industry has grown, but not other, I would say, plumbing, I would say carpentry haven't grown too much. And the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So we may be glorified carpenters at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, if the plumber is also not of that quality, we don't end up kind of, getting the same synergies in the project. So what we need to think is that, considering these given situations, we need to design a product that even an average person or an average plumber or an average carpenter is able to kind of install it and do whatever he wants to do with it. So any suggestions in future you have for us, I would love to have them personally, to kind of attend to them and kind of bring in our products in the next design whenever we are doing it.
One add to your viewers is going to be whoever's watching us today. This is an example of a project done with you, and we did all the windows from you, and all the larger windows of the house were done from you, except for one or two areas which the client were very hesitant. नहीं ये मेरा relative है, आप इनको दे दीजिए. And when we were giving the handover, I still remember, and me and Harshil were standing at their opening, the inauguration of the house, and he came to me and he said, I really wish I would have listened to you at this particular window, because I can really see the difference now when all of them are together and my house is finished, that what you was trying to explain me back then, but I should have listened to you. So, it's a request to even people for that matter, that when we are telling you something and when we have experts on board, they are giving a good job, they are doing a good job, hence they are with us. Like people like you, us, because you are doing a phenomenal job and we have seen results. And thank you so much for giving us the best solutions.
Thank you very much. I love to talk to you today. Whenever you are on this side, please give us an opportunity to host you. Whenever I am there in Delhi next, I'll definitely try and get in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.